I took my freedom for granted. I honestly, because I was just born with that, I never really thought that much about my freedom or worried about it until I lost it. I guess I don't like people telling me what to do. Maybe that's, but see, the government overstepped. They overstepped their boundaries. I don't think they had a right to tell anybody you can't leave your home. I don't think they had a right to say you can't have your healthy family members over for Christmas. I don't think they had the right to say you have to stand outside and wave up to your grandma on the 8th floor in her healthcare facility and hold up happy birthday signs. It was too much. Taking away the ability for people to express love to each other, to have community, to have the freedom to move, that the ability to move where you need to move, that to me is freedom.
Welcome to the Age of Reinvention, eco-living, free cities, and intentional communities. The podcast where we explore the transformative ideas and the innovations reshaping our world. I'm your host, Emily Bron, and today we are venturing into a fascinating realm where freedom, eco-living, and pioneering governance converge. In this episode, we're joined by Charlotte Tweed to discuss the concept of free cities, autonomous zones designed to champion personal liberty and innovative urban development. Charlotte Tweed is an expat travel coach who takes you on a journey where you don't just visit, you live it. Charlotte is channeling all her passion and skills into Liberty Travel Coach to help people relocate to unique liberty destinations. Charlotte resides now in Mexico and will help you find a home where you can have freedom and live in a community of like-minded people. From intentional communities within this free private city foundation to the sustainable approaches to particular administrative regions and seastate projects, we will uncover the potential for the harmonious blend of living freely and sustainably. How can colonies of autonomy and environmental stewardship redefine our future? Let's explore. The conversation ahead promises to be enlightening, thought-provoking, and full of insights for those who dream of integrating eco-living practices into the fabric of freedom and self-governance. So please sit back as we journey into the Age of Reinvention together with Charlotte Tweed. Hi, Charlotte. I'm happy to see you in my studio.
Hi, Emily. I am very happy to be here.
Yes, I know that intro might sound very heavy with a lot of new terminology for some of the people who just, not familiar with the topic, but interested to learn more. So I will try, and I believe you will help me uncover some mystery or actually unknown from the new movement and new development which is happening in the world as we speak. And I understand that both you and me, two Canadian women who just met recently online, we didn't know each other before, living in Canada, each of us has our own road, way, as how we get to these ideas or to this lifestyle that you already promoting and I am promoting through my podcast and my means. Let's start from you. Charlotte, can you share your journey from a corporate job in Canada to becoming a travel writer and lately Liberty Travel Coach, very nice title, I would say, advocating for liberty travel and eco-friendly living?
Yes. Yes, I did work in the corporate world for a while. I worked with the health region actually in Alberta for 10 years. And then what happened was the health regions amalgamated. At this time, I was working in human resources. I did work in hospital security, occupational health and safety as well. And my last position was with human resources. And when they amalgamated the health regions, they eliminated our positions. So that when that happened, it was very difficult because my work was my identity. And I didn't realize how much it was my identity until I lost it. And then it was, what do I do with myself? What do I do now? They gave us a time period of 2 years of what was supposed to be meaningful employment to see if we could get reintegrated into another position with the health region. And in that time, then they also put a hiring freeze on. So we were all stuck. I worked at an office manager position at a Bible camp outside of where I lived. I did that position for a year and then applied to go back to school, to college, to get my diploma in travel and tourism because I loved traveling. And I thought that is a business I could do from anywhere in the world because I didn't want to be in one position, one place anymore. In 2016, I went back to college and went through that. And that was quite the experience in itself. Going back, I had no idea what to expect being in my 40s, going back to college with 20-year-olds. And it actually was a great time. It was a fantastic experience. I did not expect to make any friends, but did make a lot of very good friends. From that, when I was in college, my original intention was to start a home-based travel agency, help people travel. I ended up being the class editor and was writing on somebody's assignment one day, and someone said, "Look at Charlotte write." And one of my friends said, "That's what Charlotte does. She writes." And that was a realization that I had forgotten about myself from way back when I was young, in high school, a child. I loved writing. I loved writing poetry. I liked writing essays, believe it or not.
I believe it because I was the same. I like writing and I like travel. So I'm fully tuning to your story.
Yeah, I love doing. And so going back to college actually took me in a direction I did not expect. And I thought, you know what? I want to be a travel writer. That's something that I can do. So then before graduation, I launched my travel blog, started building that, learned all the technical background of putting a website together, SEO, affiliates, all that type of thing. And then on the night of convocation, my husband and I flew to Egypt to launch my travel writing. I had to, let's go travel, let's go explore. The opportunity is there. So we flew to Egypt and spent a week in Egypt. Then we went to Jordan, spent 10 days in Jordan. And from Jordan, we flew to Rome and leased a car and drove up through Europe for 3 months. And it was a life-changing experience, to say the least. So.
Travel is always eye-opener for many people. Even you have experience, a new place, even familiar from before place, opening kind of new features, new stories. And yes, I understand where your curiosity was revived. Yes. But coming from this to Liberty Travel Coach, I believe there's some jump or leap as well.
We knew what came a few years after that and what that did to the travel industry. Travel blogs pretty much went to zero traffic.
Even in 20, in COVID.
Yes, when COVID hit, the travel industry was completely devastated. I would say it was the hardest hit industry in the world, really. Like I said, traffic on travel blogs went to nothing. I went and started my travel agency and registered my business the day before the lockdowns hit Canada. It really wasn't meant for me to have a travel agency, but
you might have under new circumstances. Never say never.
No, never say never. And we thought it would be, who thought it was going to turn into what it was going to turn into? I thought a month. Everything will be up and running in a month. That was a thought. That's not going to happen in Canada. They're not going to lock us indoors in Canada. Never would that come to Canada. Canada was supposed to be free. There's no way that the government is going to overstep and tell me I can't leave my house or I can't have people over. We were naive. I was naive.
It's a lot of fears were induced actually to population and all media. And I believe like it was shock, like in many ways when we heard about, this country closing. I mean, in Europe, it was coming, one by one, like Italy, Germany, France, and it was logical that we should be closed at some time as well. Cannot say that I was happy. It was shocking kind of revelation that country on after country, but under announcement that it's pandemic and we need to stop it. We need to comply to this for the better future for all of us.
Yeah, I didn't buy it. I did not buy into it. I didn't buy into the lockdowns. I didn't buy into the circles on the floor. I didn't buy into the masks. I didn't buy into the plexiglass around the cashiers. I found that more disturbing than the thought of getting sick from a virus. Going to the grocery store and making us stand 6 feet apart. And that affected me mentally. I was like, what is going on? Why this virus has a 98% survival rate? Why are we doing this? I couldn't understand what was going on.
So you had critical mind, opposing to many other people who assumed that they had it as well. But here, as I understand, it was really more shocking to see all the changes around. In actually, almost all is closed in the shopping and all this, rather than to understand at the beginning what's going on. So I commend you for being clear from the beginning about this essence.
So because everything, like my income really had completely been taken away, I started looking for travel writing jobs online. So started searching for employment. You got to survive, right? So a job came up that I applied for 2 jobs, actually. One I didn't get and the other one I did get. So it was completely online. It was a junior travel writer at the time. And I also, at the same time, everything kind of falls into place. We were doing something right when everything falls into place. I was also looking for house sitting because I wanted to get out of Canada before I couldn't get out of Canada, because I want to call it a GOG thing, saying, you got to go before you can't leave. Somebody was telling me, he was supporting me. So I was watching house sits of where we could possibly go. Our lease had come up on our condo. So we weren't tied into a lease. We were going month to month at the time. And a house sit actually came up in Texas, and it was for 6 weeks. And we love Texas. My husband and I have spent lots of time in Texas. Liberty-loving state. It was wide open. All restrictions had been dropped in that state. So people thought you couldn't fly out of Canada. It was June of 2021. And the borders and everything had been closed. But you couldn't drive across, but you could fly across. Prior to this, I had been selling stuff on Kijiji like mad, selling everything we possibly could. So we really had no furniture left. Just all that we really have left is keepsakes, the things that are of sentimental value, put them in storage. And we left not knowing when we were going to return back to Canada. We knew it was not going to be for a long time. We intended on to go for a while, check out some different destinations. Texas was the perfect place to go first because, like I said, there was no restrictions. So we felt like it was free and safe and the best place to start. And then I started my online writing for that company when I was in Texas. And yeah, that's where that started.
And how Mexico come along after Texas?
Well, with the position that I was writing with, it was an international expat magazine, and they had a libertarian focus. So they also wanted me to go and visit some of their properties that they like to promote in some countries. So after ended up having, so when those ended, then we went to Belize for 6 weeks. From Belize, we then went to Nicaragua for 6 weeks. And at that time, that's when the vaccine rollout started happening and airlines started to get really sticky and PCR tests were really sticky. And I tell you, the flights to Nicaragua were a nightmare to get there. You had to have your test. You had to submit your test to the government. I think it was 24 hours prior to your flight. The PCR tests were ridiculously expensive. It was like $200 per person to get these tests done. So that's $400 for the 2 of us. just to get a test done to say we're not sick. And then to fly from Belize to Nicaragua, you think it would be easy. We thought once we got to Central America, flights would be simple, small area. That was not the case at the time. I think it's maybe a little better now.
It was a lot of stress. Everyone's stories. And I was flying at this time, like in 22nd, actually to Mexico through Houston. And I thought that I know all the rules and I was reading in advance, changes, alerts. It was a lot of stress, but people were still flying.
It was crazy. So I said, we need to go someplace that we can stay for a while. And Mexico was the next perfect fit. Mexico had no restrictions on. You didn't have to have a test. There were no mask mandates. There was nothing, no vaccine mandates. And in that period of time as well, Mexico never really closed. They shut down for 2 weeks,
once month maximum, and they had rotating schedule between businesses, but all tourism was officially open. There were no enough tourists, but it was open.
And they had restricted levels. So maybe hotels were operating at 40% or that, but they didn't fully close. They realized the importance to the economy and to their people. If our people can't work, they're going to starve, right?
I'm surprised till now that other countries, even in Latin America, how come only Mexico realized it, Mexican government, and not other governments?
A cartel? I don't know. Anyway, maybe.
Yeah, but the common sense here worked better than in other cases.
Absolutely. So in the meantime, while we were watching still what's going on, and I'm writing about destinations and country and freedom because it's a libertarian magazine, the first country to drop restrictions was El Salvador. I checked a map all the time. It was the IATA travel map. And a little blue dot appeared in Central America. And the blue dot meant 0 restrictions. And I thought, El Salvador is open. So coming into Mexico, you often have to have a flight booked out, or there is a possibility you could be denied entry. There's a possibility. Customs can say no if you don't have a flight booked out.
Why did you want to land to settle a little bit in Mexico? Or it was your business requirements to be in Salvador?
No, there wasn't a business requirement to settle. I wanted to come here because we could stay for 6 months because Mexico had a tourist visa. Yeah, 6 months for the taking, 180 days. So you can come sit here. I just needed to not be going somewhere in 6 weeks, because travel was so incredibly difficult. So that's why Mexico came in first with that. So I booked, and then for external flights, we booked a flight out to El Salvador June 1st, just to have that. Okay, if we have to leave Mexico, El Salvador is open. That's going to be the next place we go.
And how long did you spend in El Salvador?
We didn't go to El Salvador. We ended up staying in Mexico.
Oh, I see.
Yes. It's quite a story because when we came to Mexico, we ended up getting another house sit. So then where we are now, and I had wanted to check out before we left, I had done research on a little place called Ajijic in Mexico. So I was trying to get a place to stay here, which was very difficult to find short-term rentals here. And we came here and we were doing a real estate tour with a local realtor, and we drove by the immigration office. And she said, that's where you go if you want to apply for your temporal or your permanente. And I said, wait a minute. I have to go back to Canada to apply for that. And I'm not going back to Canada because if I go back, I can't get out. And she said, oh, because of the pandemia, the government put a program in place that if your tourist visa has expired, you can apply for your temporary residency here.
It was such a smart program.
I was like, what? I hadn't heard anything about it. I have to look into this. So we got back to her office and she called the lawyer that they work with, an immigration lawyer. And he said, all we need is a copy of your current passport, a copy of your tourist visa, and the tourist visa has to have expired in order for the process to start. So we thought we have till June. This was in March. No, April. It was in April. We thought we have a couple months, so we should be fine. So we sent that to him and he sent us a message the next day and he said, I have an appointment with you at immigration this week. Your tourist visa is already expired. Why did they only give you a 16-day visa? We said we had no idea. We thought we got the 180-day visa. So we went down, answered their questions, and that was it. It was the absolute easiest thing we've ever had to do. And because it was this amnesty visa, we didn't have to provide any proof of income verification. It was just all stated. This is how much we make. This is who we work for. This is why we're here. This is it. And they took our pictures, and that was it. And we got a 4-year visa, 4-year temporal residency. Sorry, not visa, a 4-year temporary residency. And the normal way, we don't have to go in and apply, because normally you'd have to go in after your first year and renew, and then go again and renew. With the amnesty visa, no renewal. It's automatic 4 years.
I think after all this, and even we cannot now discuss all details, and you live since then in Mexico 2.5 years, correct? So I believe that your ideas and perception of freedom lifestyle changed. What you can tell about it? And I'm really interested to hear from you, because like I'm Canadian, but I'm immigrant, and I've had my previous experience with not very common, say for the average Canadian, and I only 27 years in Canada after living in other countries. But for me, Canada was for many years, it's a beacon of freedom and respect to the law and respect to human dignity and all these correct words that were associated with Canada. And I'm just interested to hear from you, Canadian-born woman. Let's speak about freedom tradition in the West, in Canada, for example, and how do you see they were working over the years? Did they change? Like your perception of freedom, was it change over the few years?
I think so, yes. I took my freedom for granted. I honestly, because I was just born with that, I never really thought that much about my freedom or worried about it until I lost it.
But you didn't lost it, actually. In my view, you gained it.
A new view, right? I guess I don't like people telling me what to do. Maybe that's, but the government overstepped. They overstepped their boundaries. I don't think they had a right to tell anybody you can't leave your home. I don't think they had a right to say you can't have your healthy family members over for Christmas. I don't think they had the right to say you have to stand outside and wave up to your grandma on the 8th floor in her healthcare facility and hold up happy birthday signs. It was too much. Taking away the ability for people to express love to each other, to have community, to have the freedom to move, that the ability to move where you need to move, that to me is freedom. I should be able to get spend my time with who I want, when I want. I'm not hurting anybody. That to me is freedom, to be able to live to be able to make the connection with people, like being told, having that community ripped apart from you. That really gave me a different perspective of it. Because before I just took for granted that I could go wherever I want. I can go to whoever's house I want. I took it for granted.
Tell me please, why so many people around us in Canada and in other Western countries where freedom was fabric of society, why many people accepted it as a kind of normal limitation? And since even this limitation were going too tight and tight, people were still not waking up. And I was surprised that even the conversation about the freedom which I started in my surrounding, people didn't want to speak about it. Like people were, and I thought we all, even in my community from Eastern Europe, from former Soviet Union, I was sure we've had similar ideas about freedom and restriction of freedom. And we came from society who was really restricted this freedom. And here we are, we don't recognize that all people so believe the country, like Canada and United States, in different position now. And this pandemic, it's so awful disaster that all these rules should be forgotten again for the better common good. Always when I hear about common good, it take me back to socialistic ideas. But What is your explanation? Why so many people fall in this mind trap?
TV. They watch television. I quit watching television in 2018 when we went on our long-term travel. So I stopped watching the news. I stopped watching mainstream media. I knew what was going on in the world, like through my travel. Being in the travel industry, I stayed on top of the travel news with travel publications and that type of thing. So I could see what was going on. I could see what was going on social media from my friends that we've made all over the world. But I wasn't watching mainstream media.
And I was not watching. I don't have TV for years, but even listening to the official announcement and looking how people reacted to it. Yes, at the beginning, okay, 2 weeks, we were, okay, let's do it. Let's help our country and countrymen to fight this disease. But after it started to be months or two, okay, what's going on? But people were telling kind of me and thinking, no, you don't understand how. Okay, in your opinion, it's mostly TV. So TV or information provided through the social media, it's enough to overturn like all ideas of freedoms that people were born with. And I understand you don't appreciate what you were born with. Thinking about freedom in like certain, I would say, authentic way, it belongs only for small percentage of people. All other people, majority, are more concerned about a comfortable life, which I understand. Work, children, family, how to make money to feed your family and pay your mortgage. And it's enough frustrating these days with economy and cost of living rising and all the fears here and there. But for majority of people, it's prevailing. And there is enough, I don't know, even some conversation I hear in the social media in our community, but they speaking where we would go. Okay, we lived in Soviet Union, we lived in Romania, here and there, and here we are, like spent so many years, and I had the same ideas, like there is no places to go. That's it, only Mars or Moon or really, but no exit. When I was listening for a lot of podcasts, and I was in industry kind of relocation, but relocation was for retirement. Before COVID, it was mostly topic of where to relocate for retirement, for better quality of life, better climate, cost of living, and stuff like that. And obviously, over the COVID years, the direction was changed, and digital nomad movement appeared to be interesting, new trend. Remote work opened new opportunities, and I decided that I need to get my remote online work, the same ideas as you had. That I never wanted to work in cubicle, but sometimes I needed. And when I first heard, actually from Mikkel Tora podcasting about different stories, I was so amazed that there is such a wonderful project. And I remember I was excited for the week and I immediately applied. It's how it started. And after then, after some time, it's not only this country which are working in such an interesting direction. Apparently, there is a whole foundation and many people looking for the same. I'm not alone in my search. I'm not crazy. I knew that I'm not crazy, but feeling a loneliness and we were still in lockdown. That there are people on this planet that not planning to build on the Mars when Elon Musk will take, I'm not sure, us or somebody else, but they are working in the same time of building something interesting and really where the many ideas of best people can be implemented. And in here, I understand you made your kind of segue in this direction. And I will directly ask you, what inspired you focus on eco-living, free city ideas in your travel and actually making it?
When I was working for the Expat magazine, we would have people, because it was libertarian focused, freedom focused. So that was our audience. And we would have people write to us and go, where can I move to get away from the new world order? Like, where I don't want this future. I didn't ask for it. I want to go. Where can I go? And I had been introduced to the Free Cities Foundation through I became the managing editor of the Expat magazine. And one of the CFO for Tipolis, Alex Voss, was introduced to me to write for the magazine. And I had no idea this organization existed. I hadn't heard of them. I didn't know what they were. So I interviewed Alex for the magazine. And I was totally fascinated. I went on their website. I spent like an entire day going through their website, listening to Titus Gable's speeches. It was just, this is incredible. These people are they're looking to create a parallel society where people can actually say, I want to live there. And these people have the same ideas. You think of it as a utopia, but it was just a concept I had never heard of before. You voluntarily move there. The city competes for you, or the community competes for you. And you enter into a contract with them. And that contract, this is how we live. This is what we do. There's rules. It's not just a free for all. There are rules, but you know exactly what's going to happen. And that contract cannot be changed without both parties being involved. Canada canceled its contract with me when they locked me in my house. The Constitution was used like toilet paper, or whatever you want to call it. It was the Bill of Rights did not exist. That can't be done in a free city because there's legal contracts between the two people. They couldn't come to me and say, okay, now we're doing all lockdowns in the city. You're going to be locked in your house. It doesn't work that way. It's a two-way street. It's a contract. It's a relationship. And I was fascinated by it. And they have projects, real projects where people are living in these places. And there are projected projects where people can live in these places. And it's just an absolutely fascinating concept. And I felt with my writing job, I loved it. I loved my writing. I loved sharing my stories. I love inspiring people. I felt I need to take another step. I can write about it, but I need to help these people find these places and go and see, is this place right for me? Could I live there? And so that's how my Liberty Travel Coach came into existence, because I thought I want to work with these people and bring this to awareness that these places are out there and there's more of them coming. There is a movement. There are people that think like you, that feel like you, that want to have the freedom that you do.
I was inspired last year during the conference of Free City Foundation from the Prague, which I joined online. And I learned about more projects, developing more names. And I've seen the faces, I've heard the voices of the people. And it seems to me that I really finally get not the kind of parallel reality, that it's all real and I can be part of it. It was so inspiring for me because the ideas of actually international lifestyle consulting and even the podcast came from realization that these ideas should be promoted. And these projects would people need to, and probably there are many people like I was and you were in a time who just didn't get this information on time and they're losing hope. And even to have the hope that there is something and there are some people and you are not alone on this world, I think it's very inspiring and actually would help people to look for these places. And now my next questions, if you can share the projects that you know, and I know some, but that really working towards living communities and facilities, because there are different projects being part of this foundation. And I believe this year soon it will be next conference and more projects, new projects would be introduced and new names. But from what I know, there's a seastead project like built on the ocean, actually on the water. Sounds fantastic. When I was looking for the architectural renders and description, it's really from the movies. But it's not to everyone. At least I decided it's not for me. And I'm looking forward to the SAM project. I never promote something that I don't like. But with all respect, there are some people who would be interested to be part of these communities and live in such facilities. I know about some eco-living intentional communities. And actually Mexico is a leading country, in my opinion, which represent many different types of communities, even not all of them part of Free City Foundation, but they work in parallel. Maybe because Mexico has this, I don't know, specific laws, and Mexicans are not so compliant to the government. There's kind of independent activities happening, which actually involve not only Mexican, but Americans and people coming from the West. What you can tell me, us, actually, what kind of communities working towards building residences for freedom-loving people? So please tell us about intentional communities or eco-living communities you maybe visited during your travel that would be interesting for our 50 plus age demographic, and actually for everyone who looking for like-minded communities with like-minded people. If you can identify difference between different communities, because I understand they have specific probably requirements and some set of rules which is different from one to another, correct?
They do. They all have their own separate contracts that you have to read before you relocate. Some of them even prefer that you read the contract before you even visit. It's a different mindset, and they want to protect that. One community, I have not visited this one yet, but I'm very intrigued by it. And clients I have as well are very intrigued by it. And I know you have been there, so is Montenegro. And I'm very interested in that. And I'm very interested in Montenegro. I think it's most important to go and visit these places and see them for yourself, because everybody has, you have your different boxes to check, and you need to know what those are before you go so that you know what you're looking for when you get there. And like I said, I haven't been there yet. I haven't been to Montenegro, but I love Europe and spent lots of time in Europe. What attracts me about Montenegro is the landscape looks incredibly beautiful. I love history and historical buildings, food, and it sounds like residency is actually fairly easy to obtain if you open a business in Montenegro. So that is something I'm exploring, possibly even for myself and my husband, maybe, because we're in Mexico now, but we have a new president elected, and a lot of people are very concerned about the new president. She has some different views. So I'm always keeping my eye open as to, could I live there?
So am I, regardless of my residency. Oh, so why not Liberland, where you can open your business on country website, be part of community in center of Europe?
It's a possibility too, but Liberland's pretty rustic yet. There's a little bit more settlement in Montenegro. And Montenegro at this time, or I guess I should say Montenegro is the community. Montenegro is not a part of the EU. They have applied to be a part of the EU. There's positive and negatives to that. I think the EU comes with too many regulations. So I fear that if it does happen, if Montenegro does become part of the EU, there's going to be more regulation. It will increase the cost of living. Right now, from what my research has said and from what I've heard, cost of living in Montenegro is quite reasonable. So you can get a cheap place to rent there. And that's attractive to me, an affordable cost of living, because coming from Canada, I know how incredibly expensive it is. And prices are going up here in Mexico where we are too. They're still half the price of what it is in Canada.
Are you open to learn Serbian?
That could be a challenge. But that's why it's good to go and see what it's like. If it's no, I'll use somebody in my family for an example. They don't want to come to Mexico because they don't want to learn Spanish. I'm working on Spanish, but where I live, you do not have to speak Spanish. You can get away on English.
You live in unique place. It's a unique place even for Mexico. But in Mexico, there are many such unique places which were inhabited over the years. And from I know personally and from research, there's no country in the world at this moment where so many expats speaking English are living as in Mexico. It's not Montenegro.
No, it's not. But that's why I would have to go and see for myself. And that's why my clients I can't tell my clients, Montenegro is for you. Go. You must relocate there. Don't go. Just move. You have to go and see it for yourself. So it's a part of getting out of them what they're looking for, what their intentions are, what their outcomes are, and then encouraging them to go and visit and beforehand. I might go there and have wonderful expectation. Oh, this sounds perfect, and get there and go, you know what? Like you said, no, this place isn't for me. I do think, just coming back to the language thing briefly, it is important to learn as much as you can of the language in the country that you move to. I do think that's very important because that's the best way to connect with locals, assimilate into the culture, and just get the fuller experience from it. My husband and I are taking Spanish lessons. We know when we got here, we knew no Spanish whatsoever. And now we can make out fine at restaurants and we can make out fine at the market. We're good with numbers. I would like to have more in-depth conversations. That the challenging thing with doing that where we are, because there are so many people that speak English here, a lot of the Mexicans also speak English. They will start speaking to us in English. No, we need to practice our Spanish. You know,
you need to get out of the expat community kind of hub in order to be immersed in a real Mexico, I would say. And it's not only language, which is very important. And I know that I need to learn Spanish, and actually Spanish opening door to many other countries rather than Mexico. Speaking about Montenegro and other Eastern European countries, it's not only language, which actually I half understand because I speak Russian, and many people, by the way, speaking Russian in this place now because they run off from Russia, from Ukraine, living for years. Even, people who actually organized Montenegro, they are Russian speaking. But it's a different mentality, which I actually recognize, but I'm not identifying anymore with. It's my personal view. Yeah. So, but you need to go, and I would speak with you after how you perceive this. But it's not just go to live at least 1 month, if possible, to be immersed, because again, nature is beautiful, like in many places. As I say, don't confuse travel with immigration, because when you look only on nice sites and nature and history, it is, especially in Europe, but try to feel like how the life would be for you here. And cost of living, it's very important component, but we also need to consider medical health, like actually medical system, and how we can be part of it, because we are all going older, I would say. And the Montenegro need to work in this regard. And they're really leaning toward European Union. So it doesn't mean we can see, and we should be clear, because again, it's in every country based on your available budget, you can have absolutely different lifestyle. Even inside the same small country, which is Montenegro, there is area for, as they say, rich or Westerners, and Montenegro is in a different part of which is okay, but different worlds exist even on the territory of small country.
As in every country, yes. And cost of living is relative. What I consider expensive or somebody else may go, that's fine. But I just know with cost of living here in Mexico compared to Canada, it's less than half the price.
No, Canada is exceptional. Not only Canada, there's many places in Five Eyes, as they say, like Australia, New Zealand, and UK and other Western European countries, which became more and more expensive. Actually, inflation touched global economy. In every place, it became more expensive because of logistics. And I believe in such a small countries, even more dependent, because if they need to import, produce even, so it became more expensive. But what other communities or what other projects you would recommend or you would share today?
The other one I've done research onto is Liberstad in Norway. My clients are interested in Norway. They're interested. They want to go back to an alpine environment is what they're interested in. And they're not concerned about weather, winter. And so I've been looking at Liberstad, it's an interesting community. It's established and there's about 20 people, but they're different than Montenegro. They're for a little further out. I don't want to get the number wrong. I want to say it's about a 4-hour car ride from Oslo. So they're much more remote, which is Montenegro. At least they're close to Bar.
No, it's in a bar, I think, and you have ferry and you have transportation and local people around.
So it'll be very different people. Do you want to have that where you are very remote, where the roads may not be that great yet? They're working on them and they're improving them. If that doesn't bother you, then that may be a place for you. If you want to be closer to a town, Montenegro might be better for you. I guess it all just really depends what people are, what their wants and needs are. Some people don't want to be around a lot of people. They're happy. You and I have talked before. You love big cities. I like to visit them. I do not want to live in one.
No, I like big cities, but to live in suburb.
Oh, to live in suburb. I like small. So I'd be happy in a town of 500 people if I have all my amenities, little grocery stores, that would just be wonderful for me. I'm good with that.
But amenities are very important and
extremely important. You can have people promoting communities and that type of thing where there's no amenities there. Sure, like you say, it may be beautiful. You may have oceanside. It may have gorgeous sunsets all night. But how far do you have to go to get groceries? How good is your electricity? How good is your internet going to be? How often does the power go out? If you can't get to town, does someone have to drive you? Can you get a car? How are you going to get food? So there's lots of things to consider.
And I believe these communities address these questions and concerns, which probably each of potential members have. I don't know if it's written on their website. No, I reviewed the website. They're not going to nitty-gritty details about living amenities and facilities, but yes, I believe that sometimes people even don't consider it, especially if they don't have a lot of experience traveling and being in such places. They assume, even in Canada, let's be fair, and I'm not speaking about far north that I even didn't visit in Ontario, but even in small villages, there is a plaza, there is like all amenities, all organized. It's different infrastructures that rather can be like, I would go to Norway, for example, me, only as a tourist, because the weather and darkness during the half year, it's not for me. I know it for sure. But I'm surprised, but some people are not considering it. Or maybe they have some ideas. And for some people, important just to find like-minded people if they feel that it's a people they want to be part of. But here I think there is another catch that people, I don't know if you consider, because it might be challenging because it's all nice, even read on contract. But when you start to live in small facility together, sometimes it's not easy. Like with people that you assume supposed to think, have the same values and interest like you. But apparently we're all changing. People are changing. And after some time, people might discover that it's not what they thought about, or it's hard for them to be part of this community, or there's some psychological issues in living there. Do you know how this project addressing this? They have some, I don't know, questionnaires. They have some meetings, maybe to find out how people feel.
Like after they've been there for a while. Yeah, that's a good question. From what I have talked with the founders so far, the communities they're relatively new, right? They haven't been established for decades or that type of thing. But at this point, the ones that are there are very much working together and have a common vision. And I think that's the point of having the right mindset and understanding what voluntarism is, what contract is. And they'll get together, they'll have jam sessions, play music together, have meals together. They try and build a community as much as they can.
What they do, agriculture in Norway, for example.
Yeah, agriculture. I know they want to put a brewery in there. It used to be an old chicken farm. It's what it used to be. So, they're more land and clearing. And tourism is also a part of their industry at this point because they have a cabin zone. So it's a good chance you can go and visit. You don't have to move there. You can go and visit. And I like you, encourage to stay for a long time. Going for a week or a weekend, that's not enough. I also suggest that it's a good idea to go in the off season if you can, when the weather is maybe not that great. Everybody always wants to travel when it's nice, but if you're going to live there, that's a whole different story. You have to go in and see it for yourself and test it out. But that's a very good question, how they interact within the communities. And part of my coaching once a person moves is to coach along with them for a year after to help them integrate and assimilate into society. Because I know what it's like to leave my country. I know what it's like to be away from my family. And I know how important it is to find a community of like-minded people, which is what we found here. And we have more friends here and support system than we had when we were in Canada. So that I know that lifestyle is out there and it can be done. You just have to find the one that fits you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know there are many questions that we can discuss, but we leave some of them for the next time. And as the last question I will ask you today, Charlotte, as someone who has successfully transitioned to the life of freedom and purpose, which you found now, and I see your passion, what would be your crucial advice to our listeners, especially for those after 50 who are looking for a similar path of freedom or looking for the communities that people can spend their time? And we are speaking about midlife part of our life. What's the advice you would give?
What advice to find their freedom lifestyle?
Yes, and what to look for, how to navigate this realms of still a lot of unknown factors.
I think it's to find, first you have to really ask yourself what you want, what you're looking for, what you need. For me, it was identifying things that I knew I had like core, what aligns with your core values, what is going to give you that lifestyle that you are really looking for. For me, 3 big things are climate, because I grew up and I just don't want the Canadian winters anymore. They're horrendous. Cost of living. I'd probably be living in a box by the river if I was still in Canada. And politics. We've discussed that. Those are my 3 main reasons and what I looked for when I was living or leaving. And community. I absolutely wanted a community of like-minded people so that you can set in, and they're out there. That hope is there. So there's people out there that will help you. I want to help you. Emily wants to help you. The Free Cities movement, people want to help you. They're all very warm, welcoming people and very open to conversations. Get connected with the people who want to truly help you and have your best interests at heart.
Thank you very much. I like your advice because, again, I came across recently, and probably there is many more leaders of some intentional communities which are building their communities. But I would say people should be very cautious. And you mentioned politics because, again, many of the leaders are using the same words like freedom, lifestyle, culture, like-minded people, community, which is excellent. But when I was a little bit reading more on a Facebook group or say other social media group sources about what they're speaking and what kind of ideas they're promoting, I was a little bit frightened for myself. And with all my ideas to promote this organization or this type of community, I thought, okay, people should be aware and not, many people maybe from immediately will understand it. And again, by the way, even when I was asking about rules. And I believe, if not on a website, but many of intentional communities, they will have this, as you say, contract. Sometimes it's contract, but in this case, it's not the contract, it's requirements, I would say, eligibility criteria to be part of the community, what they're looking for, because people should be clear before they even applying or thinking in this direction. And it should be, I believe, written not in this wishy-washy language, which can be interpreted the way. And obviously, I believe it will be some even online meetings, like with leaders of community, just because it should be matched, because it's a serious decision for people of any age, specifically after 50, to uproot from your previous life and to go to live or kind of devote your next life chapter in the community of new type. And ideas are very good. And I was born in a country with a lot of nice ideas and nice words, and even which they built society based on it. And but we discovered, like for some people earlier, some later, that it's all not exactly how it's written. But again, it's not about me. It's about people to have a critical mind, to ask a question, I believe, yes, to look for more information before they will make the decision. And I believe in this regards, your work, it's really treasure to even to share the concern about this other place or to ask for some special request. It's what I say to my client. I will ask because every situation is different. Ask your question, think deeply, go to this place, and we all will help from whatever side we can.
And you had a really good point too with saying having an online meeting with the community leaders or the community founders, which I've done with my clients, with actually a community in Switzerland that they're also looking at. And we had an online meeting with them and it went really well. So it's doing your research, doing your homework, and trust but verify.
You never mentioned the community in Switzerland. What kind of community in Switzerland?
No, it's one that I recently came across called Sube in Switzerland. And it's a community, and it's some from the Free Cities. It's not on their website yet, so I'm not sure how much they're promoting it, but it's a community that they're revitalizing. And there's 150 people living there right now. So it's a completely different project than building up from scratch. It's an older community, so they're looking to bring in younger people, families, reopen the school. It's a big agriculture part as well. That's another one we can talk about another time.
Absolutely. And people need to consider, by the way, immigration laws, which are changing for North Americans, and like Switzerland is a country with really strict immigration law. And there's a lot of questions which I believe we will start discussing and uncover in our next conversation. Thank you very much, Charlotte. And I'm looking forward to continue our conversation. And I even believe, and I encourage people who are listening to write, to ask a question. What question you might have? What you're thinking about topics we touched today? Or maybe there are some other topics which we didn't discuss yet, because the topic is big as a life is, by the way. And I'm open to get your questions, and we will try to provide the best possible answer. Me and Charlotte Tweed. Thank you very much, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Age of Reinvention. I appreciate Charlotte Tweed's insights on free cities, eco-conscious living, and the rich tapestry of liberty-based communities. We hope today's discussion has opened up new ways of reimagining our living spaces and societal structures to foster a more open and free world. For everyone eager to learn more or to engage directly with the movement reshaping our communities, visit the links in our episode description. And if you're inspired to participate in the evolution of eco-friendly and liberty-embracing habitats, remember, it's a personal and collective journey. I'm Emily Bron. Don't forget to subscribe to the Age of Reinvention, wherever you get your podcasts, and join us next time as we continue to challenge the paradigms one conversation at a time. Stay curious, stay open, and let's keep reinventing.